We tend to think that working hard is the key to success, but did you know that research shows that playing hard is actually a great success strategy? Coming up next on the Successful Women Think Differently podcast, I am talking to my friend, Dr. Elaine O'Brien, co author of The Power of Play Maximize Your Joy Potential. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Elaine, but I am so excited because you might remember in one of my recent episodes, I talked about happiness triggers, and I didn't share all the happiness triggers, but one of my favorites is play. And it's something that, particularly as women, we often don't tap into enough. And Dr. O'Brien, I just call her Elaine, has just some really great practical advice that can help you look at play a bit differently. Because oftentimes I think we see it as kind of a side note, something we do once we're, done with all the hard work. But in reality, all of us should be thinking about how to incorporate play into our everyday lives, our work, our personal relationships, and it simply makes life more fun. So, Dr. Elaine O'Brien, actually, she and I met 16 years ago as we were starting graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania in applied positive psychology. We were in the same class together. She went on to get her PhD from Temple University in kinesiology and human movement psychology. But she's also been a health and fitness industry leader. She worked with IDEA, Health and Fitness Foundation, industry leaders in the design of the first fitness industry leadership standards, safety, and certification guidelines. She has had an amazing career. Back in the day, I'd love to hear a little bit more about this, Elaine, because we've talked about it over the years, but it's pretty amazing what you did, being a national aerobics championship judge, trainer, liaison. Just absolutely, you've had a life that has been all about movement and fun and play and helping people to find their joy. So thank you so much for joining me, Elaine. How are you today?
I am so delighted to see you, my dear friend Valerie. And you are an exemplar of play to me. I'm looking at you. You look so beautiful. Your outfit is stunning. And it is truly a joy to play and be with you today. So thank you.
You know what? I thought, let's wear something that feels a little playful while I'm interviewing. Elaine, congratulations on the book. It is so good and so practical and so filled with, it's the practical tips, but it's backed by research, which is what I love, and probably one of the things we share in common is we love to share things that are backed up by the research. But what led you to decide to focus in specifically on play?
It was kind of organic. I was working with my co-author, Andrea Seidel, who is called the Book Doula. So I was working on a book about positive movement, and I'm still working on that book. And it's about transcendent movement, using your healthy body to help yourself and others and the world. And what happened was we started talking about play, and we were having so much fun. We decided to shift gears and to write about that. So it took about 14 months, and again, backed by research. And I think one of the things I love most about it is just how Andrea comes from a more playful background. Her mother would make games, and my mom sadly had mental health issues. So by combining our joining forces, we were able to lift ourselves up and hopefully share this message about the joy that we can find through play, the fellowship, the community we can find.
When you say I exemplify play, first of all, I take that as a huge compliment because, when I first took my the VIA Strengths assessment, the Character Strengths Survey, which is kind of the central strengths survey in positive psychology, I was super disappointed because out of the 24 strengths, okay, play was like number 17 for me, humor and playfulness. And I thought, I think I'm playful. I think I'm funny. But I also have this there's a seriousness about me. And I joke that I married the strength that I wanted because my husband, Jeff, I had him take the strengths assessment. Now, this is going to sound funny because we were dating, but I was like, I want to know your strengths. I had him take the VIA and the strengths finder, but humor and playfulness was at the top. And when I wrote Happy Women Live Better, we created a happiness trigger assessment with that. And what came up as his top trigger? Play. And I see it in everything he does. He trains pilots. He's always looking for ways to incorporate games into doing that. If we're doing homework with Alex, he comes up with playful ways to help him remember things. And I admire that so much because that doesn't come so naturally to me. So for the person who's like, play sounds nice, but it feels foreign or it feels hard. What do you say to them about the power of play?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. Well, first is it's so surprising again that your play was like low on the strengths scale, the VIA strengths assessment. I think it's time to retake it because as
It is.
a
I
friend,
worked on bringing it up.
I'm sure it's higher, Val. For people who might need to think about play in a different way, maybe to prioritize play. As we grow older, we tend to lose that feeling of zest that comes so naturally in children. So even if we watch puppies or we watch kids playing, we can see like the joy that they feel, and we can maybe tap into some of that. I think having like awe, gratitude, appreciation for life, it just changes things up, and it does make you like more playful, even in the hardest times. I think that play is something to really value because it lays down a foundation of goodness, so that if we have a sad or hard
Okay,
time, we don't fall as far down.
Okay, so I want you to dive into that a little more about the foundation of goodness that play creates. What does that mean?
So if we look at positive psychology, one of the things is we study the science of happiness, well-being, and flourishing, as you well know. And when we strive toward flourishing, that is something that really can help us, and play does offer that. If we look at a number line and we're at 0, right? We're maybe just languishing. We're not depressed, but we're just like maybe doing okay, but not necessarily as okay as we could be. We can do maybe things that we can lift up our mental health and our physical and emotional and psychological well-being. And when we lay down that foundation by adding a more playful mindset, again, adding curiosity, adding creativity, adding appreciation, it helps us to move up toward flourishing. And that way, if we do have something sad, maybe we go down to languishing, but not into a depression.
Okay.
So
I'm hearing you say so 0 is kind of that baseline. I'm not depressed. I'm not below 0, but I'm not really thriving and flourishing either. And so through play, I might go from 0 to say 5 or 7. And when something difficult happens, maybe I end up back at 0, but I'm not below 0. It's like a cushion or a boost
I love
that
that.
helps me
Exactly.
weather those storms. That is so, so good. So when you mention, you mentioned your co-author growing up in a household where her mom was, introduced a lot of games and kind of incorporated that. What is the importance of that for children and for families to have a playful atmosphere in the household?
Yeah, I think that it promotes like a cohesion, a
Hmm.
togetherness, like an appreciation for, things that are simple. So one example is that Andrea gives, which I really envy, is that her mom would celebrate everything. So when she got her braces off her teeth, they had a party, and her mom got her all her favorite candies, and it also creates memories, right, of beautiful, fun times together. That it kind of, as a family, it helps you to grow together and to find more good. And like we learned in positive psychology about the broaden and build theory, right? We can spiral up to more goodness. And I think that also that when you have a family that is playful, that they're exemplars and we can like role model and learn from those families
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just grow that way.
So let's go back to something you just said, because I know broaden and build, but everybody doesn't know broaden and build, and play can contribute to that. So explain what you mean when you say, we can use this idea of broaden and build.
Researcher Dr. Barbara Fredrickson wrote a great book about positivity and about love. And her idea is that, and her research, she's I guess, the leader in positive emotions. She
Yes, she's my
believes
favorite.
that she's so amazing, right? Dr. Fredrickson talks about how when we have these positive emotions, it increases our repertoire of goodness, right? That we increase our resources, our emotional, our social resources, our personal resources, and just it helps lift us up in so many ways that we open. And rather than like looking narrowly through something, we're able, because of that, the negativity bias that we all kind of have. It's like a primitive kind of survival mechanism. But when we can open and see more broadly, I should say, we're able to take more in and be able to, like, again, she talks about an upward spiral of goodness. It
Yep.
kind of just lays upon each other to help us to, again, like you said, weather storms and also flourish in the
Yeah.
world.
So
What do you
what's
think about it?
well, I think it's exciting when you talk about broadening. We know that positive emotion broadens our scope of thinking, meaning you see a bigger perspective. You are able then to make better decisions. Um, and that negativity bias you mentioned, when something negative happens, if you've ever had that in a relationship where it happens too much, all you can see is the negative from that person, right? So they could be doing other good things. You can't see those at some point because you're so
Right.
frustrated. It actually narrows your scope of thinking. So when we are broadening, that's really, really important because it keeps us open. It keeps us seeing options. It keeps us seeing the good, the gratitude that we have, and that builds up our resilience. It literally builds up like a cushion over time that positive emotion does, so that when we're dealing with something that is negative, it's like we're landing on more of a cushion, like a mattress. I absolutely love that. And so, play in itself, you mentioned the bonding, and I think it's really interesting that research shows in general, okay, these are generalities, that as women, we tend to bond through connection, like face to face, talking, connecting, and men are more likely to bond side by side through play, which we often think of, boys wrestling and playing video games and even grown men playing basketball or golf or those things, that it actually creates bonds in the relationship. So when you mention about families bonding through play, I can't help but think about the fact that oftentimes we're thinking about bonding, we're not thinking about play and what we could do differently. I'm thinking about right now the other ways that this kind of bonding can be powerful. And I know you're also working on a book about the power of play at work. What kinds of things can we do in the workplace to introduce an attitude of play and help create better bonds in the
Yeah, I
workplace?
think it's really important. In any kind of workplace, it's great to infuse some more fun and play. I know that our colleague Catherine Britton, who was in our first MAP class, a brilliant author and former engineer for IBM, talks about how they had a play culture, and she'd be sitting at her desk, and there'll be like Nerf balls whizzing by her head, which you know, I mean, she didn't really like that much. She says, but it's just like they tried to adopt it. So again, play is something that can't be forced. It should be kind of attuned to the environment. It should be something, I don't even want to say should, it can be something that really nurtures and again bonds people together, helps us think on a more creative and higher level. And just one more thought is I'm working with some students, including a mentee from Columbia University who's researching play right now. And she works for a corporation, and it's a pretty big corporation. And she introduced the idea of play. They loved it. But once it got to the higher up people, they said, no, we can't have play here. We need to call this flow or something else because we're not a work culture.
You bring up something very interesting because it's very real. You said once it got to the highest level, they said, well, it can't be play. We got to call it flow or something else, right? And flow is important. That's one of the happiness triggers that I list, but it's not the same
Absolutely.
as play. We can get into flow while we're playing, but why is it, do you think, that people, especially serious people, discount play as a valid form of increasing well-being and productivity in the workplace? Why is play discounted in your estimation? Because I think it's an important mental shift. If you don't think it's important or valid or serious, then you won't do it and you won't make it a priority.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. There's such an increase in burnout of people in the workplace. And actually spoke with a psychologist who was with a practice, and she said it was terrible that it was so serious that she left to go on her own because she has more opportunities to play. So I think that
Mm,
it's visionary to see play, right? We have that kind of work ethic where we value work so much. And then it's kind of weird because traditionally people worked and worked and then they retired and that was it. Then you could play or you could contribute or you could die, right? So if you can kind
pretty
of
much.
incorporate those micro moments of play even into your most serious day, it's going to make, it kind of sets you free. It connects
Yeah.
you. We want to be with people who are fun, right? We want to be able to just shift, as you said, that mental framework.
One of the things I see about you is that play and making everything fun has energized you. It has given you such a youthful spirit and attitude that I think is very inspiring and contagious. So I'm just excited to see that. It inspires me as I had a big birthday this year, turning 50. And I'm always looking at women who are a little ahead of me who are really making an impact and living on purpose and refusing to say that somehow getting older is a negative, but instead that it's a blessing. And there's so much more ahead that it really is true that the best can be yet to come, but we have to believe it. Is there anything you can offer in that arena around the power of play as we get older?
Again, having a play mindset, and I think it really matters because, as we said earlier, zest kind of goes down, and then we people are getting older, right? The research shows that about 10,000 people a year, no, a day, 10,000 people a day are turning 65, right? So as people
Those
get
baby
older,
boomers, we never
and
thought they were going to get to 65.
I think that play just like it makes uh, exuberance more likely. I think moving our body shifts everything, Val.
Yeah.
We did
Is
the
that where
energy
human
break.
psychology? I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, in our long days of map training, where we'd be
Yeah.
sitting for 8 hours, and our friend Susie Pledge was like, "Why don't you lead an energy break?" And I don't know if
You were
everybody
always good
loved
at
it, but
that.
I know my brain like kind of shifted, and I was able to get that brain derived neurotropic factor to help us make those connections. So I think human movement psychology looks at performance, very uh, sport based, but also around how we use our movement in every day. And we look at positive psychological skills training like imagery. We look at how about like what you do, with SWA, with the vision board, right? That we're using our imagery, our senses to help us to grow. So that mindset, so many skills that really help us to have performance every day because we use our bodies, and why not use them to help us to help our mind, help our community, help each other.
Love it. Elaine, thank you so much. I know you've got a lot of things going on. I want people to know how they can reach you. So, Dr. Elaine O'Brien, author, co-author of The Power of Play, I said maximize, optimize your joy potential. You've got a Power of Play fun tracker, and I know you've also got a new program that you can tell us about. So, where can they find you? Where can they find the fun tracker and the new program?
The Power Play is available on Amazon. And if you put the Power Play O'Brien, you'll find that. If you go to our website, it's powerofplay.fun. And remember the fun. You can sign up and get our free fun tracker, which lists a lot of the fun activities that we have in our book. And you can just check them off. It gives you so many great tools to be able to explore and aspire to new ways to play. And I think if you want to email me, Elaine, ELAINEOB at pcom.edu is a great way to reach me as well. And I'm writing right now the Power Play at Work. So if you have any ideas and would like to email me, and Val, you are my inspiration and you are my joy. Really adore you. So
Thank you,
thanks
and
so much.
congratulations on this book. I know it's going to help a lot of people. The Power of Play. Play is one of my favorite happiness triggers. I often joke about things I do just for fun, just to play, not to be good at it, like tennis, which I'm terrible at, but it sure is fun. It's a lot of good cardio. I think when we give ourselves permission to do things just for the fun of it, it relieves some of that pressure, because there are things we need to be really good at in order to be successful. But there are some things we can do just for the joy without any of that pressure of performance. And to think that we actually build that positive emotion that helps us to be successful at the things we do need to be good at, that's kind of fun. So, Elaine, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you so much for sharing some of these great ideas around how we can use the power of play to be more successful and more joyful in our own lives.
What a treat. My joy. Thank you so much, Val.